You're listening to the AFTERBUZZ TV network. Now the largest new media platform on the web and your #1 source for after-show entertainment.
Very good, Keith. Johnson.
From the AFTERBUZZ Studios in Los Angeles, California, and streaming live on Ustream, this is AFTERBUZZ TV for Breaking Bad. We'll break down tonight's episode and get you all the latest Breaking Bad news and gossip. If you'd like to buzz in on tonight's show, you can buzz us at 424-256-1729. That's 424-256-1729. And now, picking up where the show leaves off and the buzz continues, it's AFTERBUZZ TV for Breaking Bad.
Hey everybody, thank you for joining us. I'm your host, John Comerford. I'm joined in the studio by Ian Keiser, Phil Svitek. In the booth, we've got Jesse Janity, and for our very special guest, we have our very own Mr. Stewart Lyons in here. We want to thank you very much for joining, Stewart Lyons. Now, Stewart, you've been with Breaking Bad since the first episode, correct?
Since the pilot.
Since the pilot, big pardon. And you've been in the UPM, the unit production manager, line producer. I think all those titles incorporate the things that you're under your purview in the show, correct?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So we'll get into that first of all.
Sure.
But first thing we have to do is have to talk about the finale, season 4 finale called Face Off.
Before even that, for those of you listening, we did have an amazing cast Q&A broadcast hosted by Maria Menounos, live from the John Lovitz Comedy Club. Aaron Paul attended, Dee Norris and RJ Mitty. If you don't know who that is, you're not
a fan of the show. You don't know anything about what's going on. But now we get somebody who can really give us some nitty-gritty about the show. So I just, as a fan, when you saw the finale for the first time, what were your thoughts? Did you like the way it came out? Were you happy with it? Were you proud of it? What were you thinking?
Stunned.
Stunned? Really?
Oh, absolutely.
Well, but you knew what was going to happen.
But you don't see it.
Uh-huh.
I mean, you try and see it in pieces going and doing what I do.
Sure.
Because I have to put the pieces together.
Right.
Once they all come together and it's been edited and you see a performance and there's music and it's color corrected and all of a sudden it's just all of a piece, that's a different experience. And you try to enjoy that as a viewer as much as anybody.
Right.
But I like seeing it with my family because I don't tell them anything.
Oh, that's great. That was one of my questions.
No one knows anything.
So you must be going like, I can't wait for that to see this.
Well, I had my wife's hand in mine, and I was waiting for the convulsive grab at key points, and that happened,
great.
and that's the fun part.
Oh my God, that must be amazing.
Yeah, I have my own audience.
When you saw, let's use, because this is the most dramatic image when the face-off, so to speak, actually is off his face.
Right.
When you see Gus's face. So when that's I assume one of the pieces that you haven't seen in its context. So when you saw that, were you going, man, that played the way we wanted it to?
Absolutely. Well, there's a lot more to that effect than you see when it's being filmed.
Sure, because there's a lot of CG involved.
There's CG, but there is also a
some sort of
a mask that's there. Then there's the computer graphics that get added in afterwards. So I don't see the computer graphics until the whole thing has been composited.
Right.
And it's just a different experience.
Yeah.
Seeing Giancarlo walking around with that mask on for the whole day.
On the set, that
was
that was weird. Huh?
It was pretty gruesome in and of itself, and then they take it to this whole other level with CGI. I mean, those are the Walking Dead guys.
Right.
And they're just genius.
And I got to say, when we saw it with a crowd. We normally don't have that big of a crowd when we saw it. They were cheering when that bomb went off, and then they saw him walk out,
and what was that?
What? No way! How could he survive? And then he does that. I mean, just a great little character beat of him fixing his tie right before you actually see what happened to him. I mean, I don't even work on the show, and I'm going, you gotta be proud of that moment.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that must be just a thrill. And now your whole family watched it, correct?
Yeah.
And you have how many children, if I may ask?
Well, I have 6.
Now, were they all with you when they were watching this particular one? Or
No.
Okay, so were any of them there at this time?
Sure.
Okay, and so were they going crazy?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Are they going, Dad, you're awesome?
Well, it's not just me.
I know, but yeah.
There are a lot of people involved.
Absolutely.
We have about 100 people working on the show. About 120 people a day.
Oh my
work
God.
on the show when we're filming.
120 people.
And then there's a whole post group. And
Sure.
So there's a lot of people fulfilling Vince's vision.
Oh my God.
Well,
that's what we're there
Go
for.
ahead. You.
let me. I mean, the other kind of. Were you guys nervous about the fact, the chart with Salamanca and going down that? To pull that off was so strategic. And, in watching it with 180 plus people, it was pulled off amazingly. At first, when I saw it, I was like, okay, wow, this is really boring. And then as it built and built, it turned into the funniest thing for me in television ever because of that patience to do it.
Yeah.
And follow through.
That takes a lot of guts, if you ask me.
That
I
is.
mean, but this show's always taken its time. It allows things to breathe. It leaves the moment. It's not in a hurry.
No.
It just lets it be.
And I guess my
amazing.
question is, were you guys ever nervous about being able to pull that off, or anything in particular for you guys, at least for the season finale, if not the season?
I don't think that was anything we were worried about.
So,
I like that.
but speaking to that, do you ever go, God, I don't know if this is going to play. I'm not sure.
I mean, there are parts of the show that I don't necessarily understand fully, and then I'll read an interview that Vince gives, and I've been reading all the follow-up from the show, and I'll still get an insight that he may not have shared at the time.
Got it.
But the writing is absolutely clear and fantastic, and it exists that way from the earliest time that I see it, which is sometimes I'll see it in cards that are on a wall, but much more frequently I'll see it in outlines, and we can plan the show from the outlines.
Really? It's that? Wow.
Once those writers and Vince have blessed that story and say, this is where we're going, that's where they go. There's very, very little deviation.
Once those cards have been set.
Once the outline has arrived to us.
And earlier you had mentioned to us before the show started, there's 27 weeks or so of writing.
Well, for season 4, there was 27 weeks of writing before we started production. And then they continued to write for about another dozen weeks.
Wow.
I guess we were pretty much toward episode 9 or 10 before they finally finished up with episode 13.
Wow.
I'm curious.
And that's not quite correct because Vince wrote 12 and 13.
Gotcha.
He wrote them, he directed them.
I understand. Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Go ahead. You have a question.
I'm curious, with Gus getting his part of his face blown off, and that to me played like a big budget feature film effect, as did a lot of the stuff and the tension in that episode. I'm curious, in your role as a line producer, if there's ever anything that you have to say, we have to find a different way to do this, or we can't pull this off, or is there always an alternative, or is there things you've had to scrap completely maybe?
No, they just want us to spend as much money as we can possibly spend, and we've succeeded in doing that. No, there's a budget.
Sure.
And we try to stay within that as much as we can. That's part of my job.
Sure.
And but Vince is a very experienced director, and we have a really inventive producing team that goes after achieving this vision.
Well, let me ask you this then, because you know your budget for the season, so to speak, I would imagine. So do you ever have to, let's say we know we're gonna have a very expensive episode 12. Do you have to rob from 9 to make sure you have enough left over?
It's all one bucket.
It is. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it's divided into 13
Roughly.
pieces,
but you've got the bucket and you just got to make it work.
You've got to make it work. That's the goal. Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. But it's
give me some inside scoop on a very creative but cheap way to get the same effect. I mean, what, give
you
us
mean that effect?
No, not that effect. But just like I'm trying to think of an example that I have. But when we're doing our own little movies, when we know we have no money, but we have to come up with a really creative solution. And I can't think of any right now, but I love hearing those stories. Like, we had no money to do this.
Well,
here's what we came up with.
I mean, not to get in too much into this, but there was a scene that we had, and then we needed an insert shot, and so we created, we just literally made up a portion of the set and shot that as an insert,
Yeah.
So that's, for us, was a cheap way of doing that.
Well, I mean,
the scene work.
There are some things that we have done. There was a sequence this year where we went to Four Corners.
Sure, yeah, absolutely.
Now, Four Corners is maybe where a whole bunch of things come together,
right?
But there's nothing there. and it's 6 hours away from Albuquerque. And it was very important for Skyler's story that we do this, but we could not bring Skyler there for a variety of reasons, and we couldn't send a full camera crew there. So we shot that. I directed that portion with a Canon D5.
Wow.
And yet it intercut beautifully with the 35 millimeter.
Couldn't tell.
Because you just can't tell.
Yeah.
And then we did shots of Anagun. Now that's an example. And then we created the medallion on our soundstage. So it's really in about 4 different locations.
Sure.
And by the time it was all cut together, it just went beautifully. Time lapse is something that we've been doing.
Yeah, we've noticed that, especially in the last.
That grew out of a conversation between Vince and me following the explosion in the gas station. I had taken some pictures on my iPhone. And when I put all the photos
Images
together, we started talking about time lapse, and we have a couple of guys who come out, and they do that as a separate unit. That's not something we could do with a full-on unit. So we're looking for those kinds of things. We're grabbing things. We don't have a full second unit. Our first unit moves incredibly quickly. We get 40 setups on an average day, pretty much.
Whoa!
Going in and out, and yet achieving this level of
that
quality.
That is fast.
Well, when you have actors who are almost always word perfect.
Well, yeah.
You're not doing well. Gee, you almost got there.
Yeah. No.
No. I mean, there's sometimes, but it's
average takes what 2, 3, and you're on
about 3.
about 3.
Yeah,
that's incredible. That's amazing.
Maybe it goes 4. Occasionally, we'll run into something mechanical that is very difficult. The last shot that you're talking about with the face-off, Vince did 19 takes.
Wow.
Of just that camera move.
That slide.
Just that slide to make sure that was
right
what he wanted. And I just read something that he used take 19.
Wow.
So it was a little bit. I mean, we're standing there, we're watching, take after take, and the lights going, of course.
Yeah.
But it all worked out.
So the lights. So that's on location somewhere.
Yeah, that was an abandoned nursing home.
Wow.
It had been abandoned the year before, so it was a real nursing home.
Sure.
We brought in all the dressing. We brought in the bingo caller. We brought in the old people.
Speaking of on location, so you guys shoot in Albuquerque, New Mexico.
Completely, yeah.
I'm curious, what are the benefits and the drawbacks of something like that in terms of, you don't necessarily have the infrastructure of LA, and I would imagine there's probably heat issues and things like that sometimes.
Well, there's heat and cold. I mean, it's not Nevada. People think that this place is Arizona or
Mm-hmm.
Nevada or something like that. We had
high desert.
It is very high. Our temperature range this year was from a -30 wind chill on one day to 102.
In one day?
No. Over the course of the season.
All right, great.
So that was our weather range,
Wow.
and yet it all plays.
Yeah, it plays.
Like it's one season
Exactly.
pretty much. That's tricky. The reason we went to New Mexico, when the show was starting up, which was 2007, we shot the pilot. New Mexico had just started the rebate program.
Sure.
I think maybe the year previous. And a Sony executive said to Vince, look, you've set the show. I think it was in Imperial Valley.
Mm-hmm.
If we take the show to New Mexico, there's a really good chance that we can use that rebate to enhance the quality of the show. Vince came out, looked at New Mexico, decided to write the show for Albuquerque. And I flew in January 2007 and started setting up the pilot.
You've done a great. It is because the setting does feel like a character at times.
They've done a great job. Done a great job of making that. Just integrating that.
And we've gotten great cooperation from Albuquerque, the mayor's office.
Yeah.
We've been through two administrations, and they just they just support. One Democratic, one Republican. They both really support the show, and understand. What we're doing is not putting anything in a bad light. We're creating.
No, I don't think so. And how are the locals liking it? They must be having a good time.
Oh, they love it.
Yeah.
They like. As a matter of fact, I have an email today. We've been sending DVDs to a couple of soldiers in Afghanistan, and they love it because they like seeing their town, and
Sure.
and it reminds them of home. Hopefully, it doesn't remind them of using meth before they went into the service. That's not it at all. But I mean, it is something that I think the people from Albuquerque can take pride that one of the signature television series of all time has been done in their city.
Yeah.
And I don't think you can ignore that.
So, go ahead.
Yeah, I have one more question when you're talking about that they're very supportive, but there is some of the content is obviously, for AMC, there's graphic language, there's graphic scenes. Another question I had was, is there any ever issues getting things on air? And does AMC or do they ever take issue with anything you've tried to do?
I think there's always been, some dialogue about that, but their trust in Vince is pretty considerable. There've only been a very few number of cases, and in each time, I have felt that the creative meeting point. I don't even want to say compromise, because I don't think that's really the issue here. But the creative meeting point has really taken something even higher, even better.
So they found an even better way.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
That tends to be much more. I mean, we still have to follow the general television rules. There's nothing that's on the show. People were talking about like Denny's. We were our opening episode this year. They go out to Denny's.
Yeah.
Denny's didn't pay us. We paid them. There were a couple of issues of product placement, but they're clearly identified in the credits. The video game and the that terrific car that he blows up.
Yeah.
I mean, those were product placements, and really, you got to hand it to Chrysler to like. Up. Yeah, but the whole idea was this was a fantastic car that this kid really wanted, and isn't that the message they're trying to get across? Much more than let's blow up a car.
Exactly.
Which was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
It's always fun to
blow
blow things.
up a car.
Yeah, we get to blow it up.
Awesome. How many people were that day? I just want to see it.
Oh, yeah.
Everyone to see it blow
up. Well,
right?
if you've never seen an explosion in real life, you don't have an idea what they're like, because all movie explosions, all TV explosions occur slightly high speed or even, slow motion or even very slow motion, because it is a real explosion is so fast, it's actually possible to miss it.
Now,
I mean, a shutter comes down every 24 seconds. An explosion can happen in a 48th of a second, and or even faster. I mean, they're fast, and they're really powerful. I'm always amazed.
Yeah, you can really feel it when you're. How far away are you guys?
Well, on that explosion, I guess I was about 200 feet back. I mean, you don't try and go to where's it safe and then go another foot. That's not what you do with the explosion.
You don't do that?
No.
Well, I've heard that complaint. A lot of my friends were crewmen on Shutter Island, Martin Scorsese's movie, and they were like, they set up the whole rig for an explosion. They were like, "What? You're telling me to go back? I just built this thing to explode. I want to see it explode." And that wasn't your complaint?
No. No. I just did a show that had a grizzly bear in it. That thing was like 900 pounds and 7 feet tall. Nobody wanted to be around it. Nobody. I mean, nobody was like peeking around. Nobody. They just
I would have slathered myself up with honey and said, "Come on, let's go. Let's dance." No?
No. Okay. It's a big animal. It's really big.
So I guess the other thing I wanted to ask is, not everybody knows. Okay, so for instance, they've been writing for weeks.
Sure.
And you get it.
Okay.
What do you get to do?
Well, there are a number of things that happen almost simultaneously. First thing I'm trying to do is I do what's called a breakdown. And literally I take the script apart. Who's in what scene? What's in what scene? Where is every scene? And I try and, first off, schedule that and budget that. And then there are things that need lead time more than one episode. I mean, that mask that you saw Giancarlo wearing, that was basically about 3 months from the time that it was conceived of to the time it was
actually
shot.
Need it.
And I would say that two of those months were needed for the complete fabrication and how we were doing it. The ending of last year, we had a very complicated car stunt where the car drives into people.
Those two,
Yeah, that wasn't just two people taking a car hit. I mean, there were about 4 different elements that had to come together, and including a CGI component where the people were turned into mannequins,
Right.
and I mean mannequin in a computer sense. And then the hit was, and that all had to be choreographed. And Vince is giving input at every step of the way. And Michelle is giving input, Michelle McLaren, who's one of our executive producers, and Melissa Bernstein, myself, Michael Slovis, the production designer as well,
Yeah.
Mark Freeborn. So, I mean, there's a lot of input, but I mean, ultimately Vince cares about every single detail.
Sure.
And that takes time because
Yeah.
you'd love to get everything right the first time or the way he wants it the first
Right.
time. But he's fine-tuning everything.
Of course. So you're responsible for breaking it down, scheduling it, and then putting all those pieces
And then putting all those
together.
people, making sure that I have the facilities to do it, I have the equipment to do it. You were asking about infrastructure in New Mexico. It's not bad, but it's not like Los Angeles where you can pick up a phone and get anything.
Exactly.
So pretty much if I don't have it and then I need it, it's 2 days away.
So what's your lead time, man? You get the script here, and we're going to be shooting this episode. How far ahead?
But we have a full-on prep for each show that takes 8 days. And
8
then
days.
each show takes 8 days.
8 days to shoot.
So we never, from the time that we start shooting
You
till
never-
the last day of the last episode, we stay in production. There are no breaks unless we run into a Christmas hiatus.
Right.
Sounds exhausting.
It is.
Is it? Yeah. By the end, I'd imagine.
Yeah.
So and are they how many hours a day roughly? Get everybody an
the
idea.
shooting crew's about 12 to 14 hours.
12 to 14.
Occasionally we'll push it past 14, but we don't like doing that. I mean, we're in a marathon. It's not
Right.
like doing
It's not.
a low-budget movie where
Yeah,
just
we have
everybody
to-
goes crazy.
Yeah, exactly, for 4 weeks or whatever it is.
For 4 weeks,
Yeah.
if the lower budget, maybe 30 days if
Yeah.
they've got a little more money. But, you can do that and then collapse. We are going for 104 days.
104 days. And you do have, what, a day or do you take 2 days off in the week? Just the one? No days?
No, we take off Saturday and
Saturday,
Sunday,
say, okay.
usually.
Okay, usually, yeah, exactly.
Well, I mean, there are sometimes there's
You have to.
construction issues.
Yeah.
There are striking, prepping a location. Occasionally, there'll be a location that we do not have access to during the week. The pilot was shot on a Tuesday through Sunday schedule because we had a lot of stuff in a school, and they did not want to interrupt the school year. But we've been Monday through Friday for, really since season 1.
All right, so
You used to work in sitcoms too,
Yeah,
right? Or
I
you
was
still
just
do
about to ask
sometimes.
that.
I'm curious the difference between because
Yeah.
this sounds grueling, and everything you hear about sitcoms is a little cush, right? Is that
Well, I did 2 at once.
okay? Yeah, so you get to double down with the sitcoms.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, or 2 jobs on the same.
Yeah.
set.
Yeah.
No, I mean sitcoms are a great way to have a very controlled experience in terms of writing. They're wonderful in terms for the actors and the interaction with the audience. That can be really special for an audience sitcom.
Yeah.
I've just finished 2 sitcoms in the last few weeks that are single camera sitcoms right now. Although there seems to be a swing back
Yeah.
to the old style. I mean, those shows seem to be working this year, and the dramas seem to be not quite clicking. But for what I do, this is more movie making. This is
yeah. I mean,
it
seems
may be
like that.
harder, but the satisfactions for doing this are really remarkable. I mean, when you see it all come together, it's a lot of fun.
Extremely rewarding.
Yeah.
And so when you first read the pilot,
Yeah.
what was your initial, because you've read a lot of pilots and
Yes.
you've read a lot of scripts, what was your initial reaction to the pilot?
I was terrified.
Why is that? Terrified. Holy crap.
Well, I was in New Mexico. I hadn't been a UPM in New Mexico before.
Okay.
I didn't know anybody. We didn't have a studio. It wasn't cast at the time. It was extremely ambitious. And we had very little time from the time I started to the time we started shooting. Was only about 6 weeks. It was Vince. It was Karen Moore was also a producer on at the
Okay.
time.
And you weren't even cast yet.
No, I mean Brian started circling in, I guess, about 3-4 weeks. But there was no studio. We wound up shooting it in a warehouse that didn't have water, didn't have power. It had just been finished, and we were lucky to find that. Now the studios that we're in now are real state of the art kinds of things, but they hadn't been built. They weren't finished at the time we were doing the pilot. So that was pretty. I was just so happy to.
You were just lucky that it got done, right?
It was just a great feeling when we've. In many ways, my job is
easier now.
Well, it's a lot easier now. I've got a great team, and we've been doing it for a while, and we've got a great crew, and it's still hard, but it's not that feeling like you're on a tightrope without a net. But I was really happy when we rolled cameras for that first day of the pilot, because once we roll cameras, it means that all the toys have pretty much
there and we're ready to go.
We're ready to go. But they didn't have. I mean, aside from there was no studio, there was no. I mean, we shipped all the equipment and all the electric came in.
Right.
It really was a lot of planning.
No, but when you read that pilot, did you have any kind of feeling one way or another, like, oh yeah, I can see this going. This thing's going to be good.
I think that anybody who would read about a cancer victim turned meth dealer would just figure out that was going to go. I mean, it's all in the. It's all in the. It's not like any other show.
I know. That's why I'm wondering. It's like, would somebody read? You've read so many. Would you look at this and go, "Are they crazy?"
You know what?
Or is the writing so good? You went,
the writing.
Yeah, they're crazy, but this is amazing.
The writing was so clear. The characterizations were so unique. The places that we were taking it, and the locations that we were finding, and just the feeling around it. It was really remarkable. Also, I mean, you had some really top people who creatively, that they know what they're doing. Right. I mean, Vince had been doing X-Files for, I think, 7 years. Mark Johnson, who was also, who is an executive producer on the show, he's the guy behind Diner, Notebook. Yeah. I mean, this Narnia. These are not amateurs. When they throw their time, their effort behind this, it really means something. Having said that, when Vince went to pitch the show, and I forget whether it was at AMC that he got this response, or Sony. I'm sorry, I don't remember. But literally, when he told them the idea for this show, I think it was AMC, they said, "This is the worst idea for any TV series we've ever heard, and we're buying it." Because the goal really was to make memorable television. And we've done that. And Vince has done that.
Clearly. Absolutely. Wow, this is the worst idea, but we're buying it.
Yeah, I don't know which executive was behind that.
I want to be in the room when they say that.
I mean, look what AMC did with their first two shows out of the gate were Mad Men and Breaking Bad. I mean, clearly they knew what they were doing.
Yes.
Aaron Paul touched on this a little bit. Because our understanding was he was supposed to be killed off the first season, and he was just happy that he got to keep his job. I'm curious, the behind the scenes of, was it just that the interplay between the two of them after a few episodes, you see that has to continue, or how does that decision
I think that decision came about after the pilot. But once we found that out, that he was about to be killed off, we have teased him unmercifully for every year. I mean,
we can kill you at any time, buddy.
Oh, well. He came up to me at the beginning of the second season and told me he bought a condo, and I said, "They didn't tell you?" So, yes, we have a very good time.
Nice.
Teasing him about that.
I would imagine anybody on the show would be worried.
About being...
Yeah, because you guys will kill anybody for anything.
Well, except that getting killed on Breaking Bad is a guaranteed of a couple of more episodes.
That's true, because they always bring you back for something.
They'll bring you back. Yeah. You're never really dead.
We forgot to talk about this here. This is kind of interesting. Let's explore that area.
Well,
speaking of which...
It affects my job. I have to keep all that stuff around.
Nice.
I mean, once a character's dead...
You keep all the stuff.
I have to keep everything.
Keep it in storage. We'll bring him back. We know.
Yep.
Well, what was it like to call up Gail and say, "All right, we need you for season 4, but you're going to be filming the most hilarious video"? You know what I mean? And that's your role in season 4.
Yeah.
Was that was shot specifically later?
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
I mean, we shot him. Let's see, over 3 different episodes, in order to get the pieces that you saw, including that video, which was essentially like one take for him singing that song, and was just, I mean, we all got up and applauded after. It was just an amazing thing to do that whole song in the Gale character. That's not who he is.
Yeah.
He's not an obsequious guy. He's not unctuous.
Yeah.
He's really charming, and he's a brilliant actor. And do that.
He's great on Flight of the Conchords. He does some very, very funny stuff.
Oh, he's
so I know his
fearless.
level of humor. Yeah,
he's fearless. I mean, that's what it takes to act at that level. It's just committing totally and doing that.
So talk about a little bit about the actors, because you guys have been blessed. Whoever's casting, everybody in casting, I should say, has just done an amazing job. There's not a bad note in the bunch.
No.
Not that you would expect that, but I mean that must be. I mean, you got great writing, and these guys can deliver it so well.
Well, you got to speak about the car wash owner.
Well, also we're curious if are they coming from L.A. or New Mexico? These actors.
Most of the major roles, with the exception, say, of Bogdan the car, are coming from Los Angeles. Some come from Texas. For example, the woman who is Bob Odenkirk's secretary.
Yeah, who had a great little bit in this.
Great little bit. Just terrific. She comes up from Texas. There are a few more people from. I mean,
Walt
there are some.
Can't get a break. Even the secretary is just carrying something over.
Oh yeah,
on him.
absolutely. I mean, and there's backstory. I mean, you just.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just terrific that Saul is smitten with her.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like, look at her. It's like, okay, well, there's got to be a story there, and yet we don't tell every story that is involved. There's a whole backstory in Peru with Giancarlo. Yeah. I haven't a clue as to what it is.
I'm always postulating, what the hell's going on? What's the connection there?
Vince doesn't feel that we have to.
No, we don't know everything.
Paint everything out. But in terms of Bogdan, he brought his son in to be an extra.
And this is the car wash owner.
This is the car wash owner, and this was for the pilot.
Mm-hmm.
And the extra casting person, Gwen Savage, passed him up to the casting person, who then presented him to Vince. And he did that little bit. Cut to 4 years later, he's moved out of Albuquerque. He is a rocket scientist. He's now teaching at University of Chicago. I mean, he's not a slouch at all. This is a major smart guy.
Yeah.
And they brought him back for the sale. And he's hitting the scenes. I mean, you see him when he's dealing with Anna Gunn.
Yeah.
And she makes that initial presentation.
Mm-hmm.
You can get the feeling of when he talks about that he built the business.
Yeah.
Not like he's reciting a line.
Oh,
It's like you can see
I
him.
did for a second. I mean, this guy looked like you went to a car wash and you got him. With lock, stock, and barrel.
We went to Sandia Labs and got him.
Exactly, and he's a rocket scientist.
He's a rocket scientist. And Wendy, the street whore, she's a soccer mom. The meth whore who's with. She's a very stunning lady who's not done very much acting at all, and is a triathlete. She's in terrific shape.
Unbelievable.
She comes in, and the very first scene she's doing is, I think, in episode 2 of the whole show, and she's taking her panties down and jumping on top of Aaron Paul and having kind of meth sex. I mean, and then she's doing, giving head in time lapse. And there's a great story there because one of those cars, and I won't say which one, is actually a real person who did not realize we were filming and came up and was looking for the services that seemed to be implied. And she basically said, we're filming this. You may want to leave.
Thank you, Jesse.
But
wow.
with Bogdan, I was, for somebody who wasn't a trained actor, when the dollar bill, when they have that power shift and he goes to get back, unbelievable. It was like, finally after this position of power he was in the whole time. But I do want to ask about that too.
Sure.
With, a lot is referred to as eyebrows and things like that.
Right.
Is that stuff written, on set does that happen? Does that happen once they're cast? Does that start to get written? How does that happen for characters when...
Almost nothing gets written on the set.
So,
almost nothing. Everything has been written or realized by the actors. I mean by the writers and Vince. I mean, they knew this guy from the pilot. It's hard.
So they'd included it after they'd met him and stuff.
Oh yeah, I mean,
yeah.
Obviously, I didn't. We were wondering. Did they write it in?
Right,
and then they give him those eyebrows.
Let's find a guy with giant eyebrows.
No,
I could do that.
Although they might want to try and do that in some things. I'm trying to think, but no. In that case, I think they took a look at the audition tape and they went, "Oh,
that's the guy.
gold. This is the guy.
Exactly.
This is the guy." And then they just wrote to the eyebrows.
You were talking about Vince overseeing every aspect
Yes.
of production. There's a production designer, obviously. We asked the actors about color palette on the show.
Okay.
And we couldn't really get it. They said it's
They didn't
there.
know. Yeah, but I don't know what it means. They don't care.
So we're wondering
Can you
how
speak
much
to the color palette?
Well, okay. Let's just sort of say that that camera's taking the picture of the two of you
Yes.
guys right now. That wouldn't work in a drama because you're both wearing the same color.
Sure.
So you want each character who appears to be in a color that both expresses their character and that doesn't look like everybody's wearing a blue shirt.
Right.
That has to be pre-planned. And that planning would get set up with Vince at the beginning of the season. Mark Freeborn, the production designer, would be a part of that. Kathleen DeToro, our costume designer, would be part of that as well. And they would pick out swatches of colors for each character for the season. And with Vince, sometimes there would be transitions. I want them to start in this and then go to darker shades as maybe the character is getting darker, committing murders, things like that. I mean, those are kinds of things that he cares about.
Right.
And even if people aren't necessarily consciously aware of this kind of stuff, it contributes to the overall effect.
Well,
Now, did he pick colors that would actually represent an idea, or they metaphorical in some sense, or were they? For instance, we saw a lot of
Green.
reds and
Green is money. Obviously.
Okay, it
Green
is.
is growth. Green is hope. There's almost no green in the pilot.
except for the logo. But I mean, for instance, and then yellows. We saw a lot of blues and reds this season.
Right.
And so were those obviously they're specific.
These
but
are all choices
Yeah.
that are being made.
Yeah.
And they're not being made during the episode. They're
they're
being
pre-planned, and this
pre-planned.
is the palette we're going to use.
Right.
We're going to go from red to whatever, or
and
as
it's
the
not
progression
just
goes.
clothing colors, because you don't also want this color to be the same as this
Absolutely.
color, because then there's no differentiation.
Yeah.
So every decision in terms of clothing, wall colors, car colors, these are all conscious, creative decisions that we care about.
Yes,
And that
we
Vince
care
cares
about.
about.
But
Vince
we want
cares
to know
about a lot.
what's the thought process? Why the red? Why is the red representative of?
I think that you see what it's represented.
Okay,
of.
but I want to know what he wants.
We didn't fail. What did you take from it?
We have all these fights about what it represents, so people have different ideas. So we're trying to get the inside scoop about.
Well, I think Mark and Vince should speak to that.
All right.
And
So-
also, by the way, it's a big thing for camera, too.
sure, absolutely.
I mean, reds don't show up terribly well photographically. They're tricky.
Well,
Patterns are tricky.
the big question, I guess, of the fans this season was, what is with the minerals, aka the rocks or whatever you want to call them, of that Hank's obsession
with the minerals.
And we heard that Vince was like, oh, it doesn't mean anything, but to show everything means something, it has to mean something. So we tried to get Dean's take on it as to what he assigned it. Do you know anything about that?
No, but there is one kind of funny little element to it. One of the jobs of the set dressers, and we have a great one, Mark Flowers, is to make you think when you're seeing somebody's room that there was a life there and that you know something about the people who are there. You see the purple obsession of Marie in her house.
Yes.
You see how dowdy Walt's house is.
His own place.
So everything contributes to that vision. In Gail's apartment, there's a rock collection that was put in. There's also climbing photos. There's lots of stuff where you really got a feeling for this guy.
Who this guy was.
This was like a real guy who had a real life, who was an interesting person. And that is part of what made his death so powerful. But there's a rock collection there. That showed up accidentally. I mean, that was just something that I guess Mark decided to do. It wasn't until after we started with Dean's Rock Collection that
You started making that connection.
that we made that connection. But that's serendipity. That wasn't any connection. That wasn't to show a common element between, say, Gail and
Okay,
But I'll tell you, 5 years from now, somebody who doesn't know that'll go through and go, and then they lay that in,
Exactly.
and then he brings that
that's
over.
the discussions we have with the fans. There's, but no, I think this means this, and
Most things mean something.
For instance,
Very
there was
few
a lot
things
of
mean
talk
nothing.
about why they used the Bridge on the River Kwai, that particular cut from that with Alec Guinness. What have I done? What have I done? And I had read or heard in an interview with Vince that no,
They owned it.
Sony owned it, so we used it. It wasn't real. I didn't.
Yes,
was no
but
other-
Sony owns a lot of things.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. But according to him, it was like, well, no, I just used it. Is he being coy?
A little bit.
Okay.
I think there's much more of a design there.
I would think.
I mean, when you get 5 things to select from and you pick
Yeah.
that one thing,
There's a reason why you picked it.
you pick, and it may not even be something that he's conscious of. I mean,
Right.
he's unusual. He's got great intellect, but he also he writes emotions beautifully. So he has access to both those things. So he can make an intellectual decision, and he can make an emotional decision. Same guy. There aren't many people who can do that.
I'm curious about. Speaking of the lab assistant who got killed and Gail's death, and also the end of the season finale, seeing that Walt likely poisoned the kid.
Likely.
Did. I'll say did. I'll get it.
Sure.
I'm curious if there's discussions about how far you can take Walt to the dark side and have people still be sympathetic. And I'm also curious if it matters if people are sympathetic to Walt. Like, are you still going to be compelled because it has become an ensemble and you care about Jesse? Like, do you have to stay sympathetic for Walt to at work, or can you start to hate Walt?
Vince has been extremely clear about this from the beginning, and I didn't completely understand until really this year that
How far
it was going to he's serious about it. What I was always hearing was that he wanted to take Walt from being Mr. Chips to Scarface, but there was something that hadn't ever been done before. When you saw that movie, you still stayed sympathetic to Scarface. Vince's intention, which he really expressed this year, is that by the time we get to the end of the show, Walt will die, and you're supposed to hate him. Wow. We are taking.
I didn't hear that. That's unbelievable.
I mean, this is what it's been printed.
Here's our
Well, it's been
exclusive.
printed before. I mean, we're taking the protagonist of the show and we're turning him into the antagonist.
Absolutely, yeah.
That's never been done before because no one's had that kind of time frame, creative time frame, to allow that to happen. You can't do that in a movie. It takes most of a movie to get you on board the hero's journey.
Right.
And then to take the hero and turn him into the villain and still have him sympathetic, that's something that really, where has that been tried before? I mean, to some extent, did they try and do that in the second Star Wars trilogy, which preceded? I mean, were they trying to make you sympathetic to Darth Vader? I don't know. Once he blew up Alderaan, I was waiting for this guy to die. I mean, I didn't care that his mother mistreated him. He blew up a whole planet. So that's what Vince has said he's going to try and do. Now, it's amazing to some people that we're still sympathetic to Walt. After all, we've seen him.
Yeah, he's killed.
He's killed.
Or had
it's-
people killed.
Well, I mean,
He's killed a lot of people.
Yes, exactly.
And
he almost killed the
indirectly,
kid.
he's killed hundreds of people by
Yes,
the airplane crash.
exactly.
So he's killed through action by strangulation.
And we have people
gunshots
cheering for him.
and watching a girl die.
Yeah, just not doing anything. Just letting
not
her.
doing anything. Letting her die.
Poisoning child.
Poisoning a child. Setting that up.
Yeah.
I mean,
but the great thing is, so he does that, but he cares about his family. He's not a bad guy, and that's what I
He's
love.
not a bad guy. No, but he is a bad guy. That's the
No,
point.
but I love that because at the end of the day, I think the reason it works is because there is that rationalization, and for me, that's what it is. It's okay, so he's done that things, but he cares.
I think the most interesting segment in terms of going on this journey really was in the first season, where he is invited. I think it was our third regular episode. He's invited to a party thrown by, in essence, Bill Gates.
Right, his former friend.
And the guy says,
Colleagues.
I hear you are sick, and I'll pay for everything.
Mm-hmm.
But by that time, Walt's already killed 2 people, and he's gotten a taste of what will flower into the Heisenberg character.
Right.
And the idea of losing control again and being a non-entity.
And in debt to this person.
Well, what debt? I mean, he thinks he's going to die.
No, what I'm saying, if this guy paid for everything, that's just another thing for me to
Another
feel.
thing that he could not control.
And this is my point. It's
And
just, yeah.
that episode, I remember reading that episode and thinking, wow, if we can pull this one off, if we can make people understand, then this is really remarkable. And that episode, more than anything else, kind of opened the door in my eyes to how unique this journey was really, really going to take us, and how we would play against everybody's expectations as to what normal people would do in that situation. That was really a departure, and more so than really a lot of other things.
Okay, well, on that note, I think we should head towards our commercial break. So why don't we do that now, Jesse, if you can take us away to commercial?
Want to find out what the AfterBuzz is about?
Janice is a drama queen.
This is the divide that is going to carry the series.
Give us a call. 424-256-1729. 424-256-1729.
It's television, and they want it to be as dramatic as possible.
I mean, it's Shakespearean.
You never know what goes on behind closed doors.
Find out why AfterBuzz TV is the #1 source for after-show content.
Now, in the eyes of Jimmy, Nucky is a villain.
424-256-1729. 424-256-1729.
I mean, who would you guys rather hear that from? Your husband or your best friend?
The wig! The wig will come out.
When the TV show is over, get your
Anything you want to add?
AfterBuzz on.
Anything you want to talk
It's
about?
fine if you guys are getting what you want.
Oh, we'll get it. Are you kidding me? We'd do this for hours.
Yeah, we could.
Yeah, we're back. Sorry, we were
got a
chatting.
little
just
Talk
behind
about
the
what
scenes.
super geek
Yeah.
fans we are.
Exactly. So it's been fascinating to hear all about this. First of all, we want to thank you again for joining us.
pleasure.
It's been a pleasure to have you. Last few things before we go. So, any last questions, comments?
Well, I do want to say, I mean, I'm glad to hear that Vince, he is a mastermind, because if you listen to his podcasts, the way we do, the ones made by AMC, honestly, you could pretty much quote him, we just got lucky. Oh, I don't know why. It just happened that way. But I'm glad to know that there is a design, because I do
Works his
feel,
ass off, and
Yeah.
we all do too.
Is he just
Yeah.
modest? He's humble
Yeah.
about it? Yeah, he's just incredible. Talk a little bit about that process. He's just modest about and he's just, what is he?
He's modest. He's grateful. He's also exacting and demanding, but he appreciates when he gets stuff that sometimes exceeds what he was hoping. But he has a vision for this that we're there to fulfill.
And it would seem to me that working in this Breaking Bad environment, you guys really want to do the best you can. And not that you wouldn't do it every time, but for some reason it seems to be elevated in this area.
It is. I mean, this is the assignment of a lifetime for most of us.
Sure.
And the only people who don't know it's an assignment of a lifetime haven't really lived that much, and haven't been involved with TV that much.
And is that what you're most proud of? That right there, or
Breaking Bad?
No, I mean of that being involved in something that you know is going to be.
Yes, I mean, if we wanted to, I mean, there are careers that are. No, I think the saying is nobody put a gun to your head and said go into show business.
That's true.
I mean,
yeah, you can get a paycheck anyway, right? But
maybe not in this economy, but it's certainly a calling, and you do sacrifice. I'm away from home for 8 months.
Yeah,
I'm more than anybody else. I'm first one in and pretty much the last one out. But there are certain things that are worth it. And when you're doing stuff where people care this much, it's not just another job. It's not another job to the people in New Mexico. When the scripts come out, pretty much you'll see people all over the place reading them because they really care about the kind of job that they're doing on the show. They know it's special. The word in New Mexico is the way to get the job on a job on Breaking Bad is to wait for someone to die. Because nobody's leaving on their own.
How was that atmosphere created? Just that because the writing is so good, because the exec producers just raised the bar. This is what we're shooting for. Or how did that happen?
I think it's because nobody is phoning it in, and if I'm not phoning it in, I'm not letting the people who I hire phone it in.
Right.
I mean,
so everybody's holding everybody else to that same standard.
And it's like a game of tennis. I mean, if somebody's hitting the ball back to you,
you got to hit it. Yeah.
And if you play with bad people, you don't play a great game of tennis. But if you're working with these actors, with this writing, with these directors, you better really, come with good stuff. Yeah. Because they'll demand it, and it's fun. I mean, that's the fun part, to do stuff that just blows people's minds, to get a tortoise and blow it up, to land an airplane in the middle of nowhere, to do these desert shots, to do things in the middle of nowhere, sometimes in incredible weather conditions, sandstorms, cold, hot, snakes. I mean, these are all things that we deal with all the time, and make work and make great TV out of it, make really great TV.
What else you got?
I just did want to make a comment about the thing that I love most about the show is the fact that the repercussions will last the whole season, whereas most shows, something will happen in an episode, and the next episode it's gone, and you really feel them carry every decision that they make throughout the whole season.
Well, that is the nature of this piece. This is one long story. This is one, like a Russian novel. This is Dostoevsky.
And so for the last season, I know you don't have to talk about the specifics, but I know it's going to be an 8-episode season. How important was it that you had those, these next 16 episodes to tell the full story? Is that what it was from the beginning? It was really this 5-season arc, or like, how does that?
I think Vince started talking about it being 5 seasons about a season and a half ago.
Yeah.
I think that there was a possibility it could have gone another season beyond that, but he's feeling that this is what's necessary to tell the story.
To finish the story.
And finish the story. And it is one story. We're not doing a police procedural where we find the body and joke about it and arrest the wrong guy. And every story is different. Every story, my challenge as a line producer is, the show changes all the time. One time we're in the house, and the next season we're almost never in the house. We build a super lab in the middle of nowhere. Well, what do we do with this?
Now it's all gone.
Now, well, you think.
And you guys start writing in 4 weeks?
They start writing in 4 weeks.
They start writing in 4 weeks?
4 weeks, they'll write, and we'll, if the schedule is a little tentative, but right now we'll start filming mid-March.
One of the things I love about it, because it's not a procedural show, so little of it is exposition. It's really just all behavior. These people just in their element, behaving. I find that's the most fascinating thing about it.
There is no story structure that you can hang on to and go, oh, okay, now we're getting close to the end. I really got to. You don't know where you are in this story.
Not a clue.
And I mean, take a look at the second to last episodes last year and this year. Both were almost season enders in and of themselves. If we had left Walt curled up on that roof,
it could have been.
It could have been like, okay, there's a cliffhanger to take you into next season, and then they could have, killed Giancarlo then. Same way when we hit the guys and Walt turns to Jesse and says, run.
That was a cliffhanger.
Well, I called Vince up. I said,
what are you doing?
No, I said, let's stop now. You're never going to top that. And then the next script comes out and you go, oh, okay, great.
Okay, I guess you will.
You will. And he does.
Yeah.
And that's the fun part. But that literally was a phone call I made. So you're never going to
Because I said the same thing when I saw it. I go, what?
Where are they going to go?
How are you going to? That is an amazing cliffhanger.
Yes.
Yeah. I do have one more question.
Sure.
I don't know if this is hard for you to answer because maybe you're privy to a lot of stuff, but I'm curious what hopes you have for the final season as a fan of the show even. Like, are there, like, what relationships do you really want to see come to, some kind of climax?
I haven't a clue.
Oh, you really?
Really? No?
Oh, no.
Yeah.
No.
But okay, but as a fan, would you like to see, for instance, I want Jesse to find out about Jan.
That's important to me. Yeah, I think that.
do.
Yes.
Yeah.
I want to see him, because as an actor, I want to see Aaron go through that process and realize that this guy was responsible for her death. I want that. I want that conversation. But as a
Let
fan,
Vince
is there
know.
anything that you
You know what? My goal for a long time has been a very simple one.
Yeah.
I want to be there when Walt dies.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
I was there
For when he came to me,
when
Heisenberg came up. Yeah.
when the show started, and I want to be there to see the final moment,
Mm-hmm.
and I want to enjoy it as much as I can as a fan, and
Yeah.
as the
So I'm
fact that
working
this
on
has
it.
been
Yeah.
a major part of my professional life, and
Mm-hmm.
I will always be known for
Yeah.
working on this show. When I go on to other shows, I've been
You'll see.
on 4 other shows because we don't film all year round, and I'll
Right.
go and I'll do a pilot or I'll do some other series. The writers want to know what happens on Breaking Bad because typically it's not on the air until I'm back here
Right.
and working on
Working on other
something else.
shows.
And so Monday is spent talking about Breaking Bad. Of
course.
This past Monday was, the Mondays before that.
Yeah.
It's spent. Writers admire the show because they realize what an incredible achievement it is.
Yeah.
And production people admire the show because they just can't figure out how we do some of the things that we do.
Yeah, nobody can. We're asking everybody.
Well, I got a call from the studio. What did you guys do with that helicopter? There's a terrific shot, very, very high angle shot in a couple of places. You see it this year. There's a nighttime shot of Walt walking toward Giancarlo's house.
Right.
And you see the shadows, and then, of course, he gets the phone call, "Go home, Walter."
Yeah.
There's that. It looks like we're hundreds of feet in the air. We're not. I mean,
You're going to tell us how?
we're about 100 feet in the air, but it's lenses. The teddy bear crashing into the pool.
Right.
That was done with the largest construction crane I've ever seen because you talk about what to do with a budget. Helicopter would have been about $25,000 because
Just for that shot.
we don't have a helicopter there.
Sure, of course.
I mean,
not.
there are helicopters there, but they don't come with camera mounts and everything else. So the helicopter would have had to fly in from Los Angeles. That's
Get rigged.
That's a case where we brought a crane in, but that's only after. And there's a whole long story. I don't know if you have time for that with a weather balloon idea, where we were going to send a camera up on a weather balloon.
Weather balloon.
Yeah, well, the tether broke and the camera went.
Oh, no.
Oops.
Yeah, but that was during a test.
Okay.
So
All right.
that was kind of
So
fun.
you ended up using a crane.
We ended up using a crane, and it worked beautifully. I mean, you think you're 2,000 or 3,000
Oh,
feet
absolutely.
in the air,
Yeah.
and it was just. I mean, that's also a combination of CGI and mechanical effect
Sure.
of a real camera doing it, and a reversal. I mean, it starts off low and goes high, and then of course you've seen it. You see it the other way.
Yeah. Well, we could go on forever.
We could.
We could, and I would love to just keep picking your brain about everything.
Okay.
Maybe we'll have you on next
Next
season.
season,
As well.
that's when
If
we're
you're
gonna have
willing
you
to come
back,
back.
definitely.
Whatever.
We would absolutely. We would love to have you.
Be
Come
a lot
back.
of fun.
Thank you so much
My
for being
pleasure.
here. More than anything, we thank you for all your hard work. I mean, you've been associated with. You've got an amazing resume, and to have this on, as part of it, I mean, thank you for all your hard work. Put it that way.
It's our pleasure.
It's been a pleasure to be part of whatever you bring to this audiences. So we thank you for that. So I guess that's it, Jesse. We're gonna head on out now. So thank you everybody for listening. That was our after what do we call that? Our
after.
Because it was first I want to thank Ian Keiser for being here, Phil Svitek, Jesse Janet in booth, and of course against Stu Lyons for coming out here and giving us the benefit of his experience. We appreciate that so much. Okay,
And,
we're out of
just,
here. Wait, we got one more thing.
We also got to support AMC's podcast. We're fans of
absolutely.
that one as
Please.
well.
Yes, we
so
listen to that all the
if you
time.
listen to us, you got to listen to that one as
Yeah,
well.
you do listen to that. You get some stuff there that we can't get here because they don't always tell us.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you very much. We're out.
From producers Kevin Undergaro and Phil Svitek, engineer DJ Jesse Janity, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. If you have questions or comments, be sure to buzz us at info@AfterBuzzTV.com. And you can find us on Facebook or follow us on Twitter by searching for AfterBuzz TV.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.